everyone! So today we are going to be drawing with highlighters. Hi everyone! Today we are going to be attempting to draw with highlighters. I found this pack of pastel highlighters, which seemed pretty interesting, you know, and they're a little bit different from normal highlighters, and everyone loves pastel. It's so cute, so I thought I'd give that a try. These are the colors that we have in the pack. We have pink, yellow, orange, and blue, green, and purple, and of course they're all pastel. Let's get started and see what we can do. So I found this picture of like this cute punk e-girl type woman, and I thought that would go really well with the bright fluorescent kind of highlighters. So I started drawing that. Of course I started with the skin because that is the underlayer, and honestly that is the hardest bit for me when like painting or coloring, I suppose. So I knew I would have to get that done first to see if it was going to be absolutely terrible or actually work out. I didn't really have much of a plan. I kind of just went in and went with the flow, saw how it felt, how they went on top of each other, that kind of thing. I basically thought that I would have the lighter colors as the highlights and then go darker with the darker colors, but of course they're all highlighters, so they're all going to be bright. There's not really any dark colors, so to speak. So putting down the light and slightly darker colors, I kind of just filled up all of the main areas, and then I thought maybe I could go over with a bit more detail, add on some layers, and then make it darker that way. I hadn't really done any research on how anyone else had used highlighters to create a drawing or to create art, which I think probably would have helped if I had, because I would have seen the actual techniques that I could have used, but I kind of just went in and experimented while actually doing it instead. One thing that I did notice really quickly was that highlighters are not meant to go over a bunch of times on top of each other. The paper kept coming up, little flakes came up, and it was kind of just rubbing it really raw, and it was not turning out that great when you layer it, but that was the only way that I thought I would be able to darken or shade the areas, so I kind of just kept going with it. We all know that highlighters are not meant for drawing. They're meant to highlight. So it was really interesting, especially because you know when you do the highlighter, it just makes that one streak and it does not blend in any way. There is no blending ability whatsoever. Obviously, I do not have that many colors to work with, and because it's very hard for them to blend together, it makes it even less colors. Even if I go over top, it's still gonna be just the one color. So while filling in large areas like this with the green top, it all looks very bland and just like so 2D. But I was just praying that I would be able to go over top and add some depth to it afterwards. Even though the highlighters are not really made to make art like this, they were actually really fun to work with. The bright colors are so different from everything else that I would be using that it was kind of exciting. Although if I was to ever try this again, I would definitely be using a bigger sketchbook or a bigger piece of paper at least, because the highlighters are so thick and there's like no area where you can get any detail out of them. Which I suppose is kind of good to fill in the larger areas like this, but
going in with any kind of detail was extremely hard. Even when you turn it to get the fine end of the highlighter, it is still large compared to, say, like a paintbrush or a pen. Now, finishing up the hair, after this I decide to go in with the purple highlighter to add the shadows and maybe a little bit more depth. This was the part where I really realized that they are not meant to be going on top of each other. The paper was coming up so much, there were so many little fragments that were coming up because I was just kept going over to make it more in depth and giving it more shadow. But I kept adding it because there was no really any other option. And I kind of just hoped that it would turn out okay. Now, once I had finished with the shadows with the purple highlighter, I decided to go over with the markers that I had already used in like the hair and a little bit on the jumper, just to add a little bit more depth on top of those areas without actually putting in the shadows with the purple highlighter. So I went over the blue with the blue, and because I'm doing double lines, it makes it darker. I did this mainly on the hair, but I also added a little bit to the jumper as well. This was actually a really fun experiment, especially because it's so different from the usual art supplies that I would use. My always go-to is gouache whenever I'm doing anything color, or just ink in a pen for just sketches, and those are basically the main two that I always use. So this was completely different to that. So I was not happy with the amount of shadow, so I decided to go over again and add even more with the blue and purple highlighter. While doing this, I tried my hardest to try and get more detail out of this, but I just couldn't. It wasn't working. If anyone knows how to actually get detail while using highlighters in an art form like this, please let me know in the comments because I need to know. Now, to finish it off, I decided to do some cross-hatching all over the jumper to make it a little bit more interesting because I wasn't fully happy with how it turned out. It was kind of bland. I also added a little bit of cross-hatching and lines on top of the face and the hair and a few other elements. I'm actually really into this style, and I think it added a lot to the jumper because before it was just plain green and it looked so boring even after I tried to double down on the shading, and this just took it to another level. After that, I just highlighted in yellow around the person and it was all finished.
That is the finished result. I hope you liked it. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.